Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I am joined today by James from IM. So, how are you, James?
I'm not too bad, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. So, I'm here with the interview, obviously, with the IM's new lineup and whatnot. So, how are you selling as a captain so far?
Settling as a captain is actually quite difficult. In terms of the way I've always felt a captain should act is, lead by example, doing all the good stuff and putting in most of the effort. Well, not even most, just like a lot of hard work. So I'm trying to keep that level up, trying to keep my team motivated and stuff. But it's good. It's a good new experience.
Okay, definitely. So, did you envision yourself actually becoming the captain at this stage, or was it something that just came out of the blue and you're just like, oh, this is quite sudden, but I'll take the responsibility on?
Um, it pretty much just came out of the blue. Like I've in the whole lineup, I've always put in a lot of effort into our strategies, tactics, stuff like that. Not taking anything away from anyone else, but me and Sniper did put in most of the effort in terms of our strategies and stuff. And it kind of just came to where it is now, I guess. Like I don't know, it just happened.
Okay. So I know Sniper's stepped down, and I think we should. There's definitely footage of why he stepped down inside of Sandman's interview. So I guess we'll just go into the addition of both Suzy and Molly into the lineup. How's it working so far?
Um, well, it's actually quite difficult in terms of the last few months haven't been the best for us. Even our last two CG games, we had only a half an hour with Moe before we played. I think it was Jam Gaming, who played really well and they got a map off us. And then we were like 5 rounds in against Corvidae and Rick's graphics card fried. So we
Yeah.
had to we didn't even get like a sub because there was something happened with roster and Ian accidentally got removed with the roster. So we couldn't even get him and we had to get our CEO in,
Yeah.
Sentinel, who actually did pretty well. But yeah, nah, look, we haven't had the best run, but hopefully this will change by the end of the weekend.
Okay, so I'm assuming also because I think Sniper also briefly mentioned that there are positions changing around. Are you guys still experimenting in terms of who's holding where and who's leading what role, or is that pretty much been determined at this stage?
Um, like we're always changing things. We're always doing new stuff. We're always, giving each other different roles and trying new things because like one thing may work with someone, but it may not optimize someone else.
Yeah.
So our main focus is making the whole team like a great, um, just like all roles defined, so everyone knows what they're doing and trying to make the chemistry really good. So at this point in time, we're still mucking around with a few things. We've got a lot of stuff down pat, but we're putting in more time and effort than I can't even. I don't remember the last time us three, in terms of Imagine, Rick and myself, put this much time into our team. So it's really good to see that, and interesting to see our results in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So this is, I think, going a bit more on a personal level. So I have always heard from the Oz CSGO scene, I've heard PDG say that an ideal player would be James. I think that was in random in a conversation. I do remember that though. So as a player, how do you develop and keep yourself determined to actually push and improve?
It's actually quite difficult in terms of motivation and determination. Trying to stay motivated and play the game is for me now. It's not my like it's not a hobby anymore. It's become like, yeah, it's still my passion. It's still what I love doing, but it's not a hobby anymore. This is business to me in terms of, if I have to play with someone who I may not like, or if I have to play with people who, you know, I may not get along with, or whatever it be. Like now is the time because this isn't just a group of mates hanging out playing some video games. This is we're trying to win. So that's what like I got through into my head very early on. And I am lucky that with all my teammates, Imagine I've been playing with Rick for almost over 2 years now. Imagine, I think I said him, Zusi, Moe, they're really good additions. Sniper, everyone in my team is just awesome. So I'm glad I get along with them. But yeah, that's one thing I would say. Trying to keep determined and like to keep going, pushing through the crap times is very hard. Like I know, when we lost Ustillo and he went off to Renegades, that was a very hard time for us. But if you love doing what you're doing and you want to win, like you have got to have that drive to win. If you have that drive, then you're just going to pursue and you're just going to keep going. So
Yeah, definitely. That's actually really good response in terms of determination. How about like in terms of like mechanical development? So, in terms of how did you pass the? I'm assuming you've hit walls along the way. How do you actually break through those mechanical limitations? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does to a bit. I definitely have hit walls along the way. I think for me, it's knowing how to improve in terms of like what you did wrong, what you need to do next time, and like doing other things. So like watching demos is the biggest and the easiest way to improve in individual play and team play. I think a lot of younger tier players or lower tier players, sorry, I should say, don't understand what they're doing in the depth, if that makes sense. So like they might make a play, and it may be even the correct play to make at the time, but they don't understand why they're doing it. So I think if you can get grasp the understanding of when and why to make plays, informate like the sort of plays as well that you make during the game, the info plays, all that sort of stuff. If you can understand that grasp, then I feel like after a few weeks of understanding it, your play just kind of gets better because you're trying to like, even as an individual who's not an in-game leader or anything, you're trying to read the play, you're trying to read, what's going around in your bomb site, where your teammates are playing and everything. So I don't know. To me, it's just playing and learning. If you get the understanding, you're gonna learn. So
Yeah, no, that definitely makes tons of sense. So I think even actually what you just said is actually quite relevant in terms of casting as well, because sometimes like we also look at it, so maybe we should also try understanding how the plays work as well. So
well,
um,
yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely picked up something there, so thank you as well. I guess so now this is going on to a more of a wider thing. So I guess firstly, what should teams do in scrims really to improve? So we've gone to the individual now. How about teams overall?
Look, it's hard. Different teams use scrims for different things, right? So the most ideal scrims or practice is different. Well, it's hard to say, right? So like for example, if we verse one teams who's really aggressive and as a CT side and we're T side, they're really aggressive. They're making pop flash plays. They're doing all this sort of stuff. We're not going to be able to practice our executions against them. We're not going to be able to get set up and throw our smokes and flashes and stuff because they're just not going to let us, right? And that actually may get really frustrating and like to us because we're trying to practice something, but it comes down to well, at the moment, me, my in-game leader, to kind of say, okay, well, they're not letting us do anything. Let's just practice our default. Whether we get smacked in practice or not, as long as we're practicing that thing, like I think score begins to determine too much in teams play. So like, if you're just going to play a team and just practice your default, so your default may only run for the first minute of the round, and the next minute of the round kind of is rendered useless in terms of, well, no, you're just practice like this practice is just for this. And I think that's what a lot of teams don't understand. I think a lot of teams try and want to like just win the practice. Like if you're going to be a CT team that pushes on your in your practice and stuff, that's great, right? But you got to make sure that you're practicing that for that reason. Like you got to understand, like you shouldn't be practicing that every single practice. Like there should be a practice where you're going to practice all the plays and all that stuff. But then you got to understand that going back or the next scrim, you're going to play all your passive setups. You're going to play all your crossfires, all your teamwork stuff. So I think that's a major downfall in Australian CS. They don't understand the practice that they're trying to do. Um, and then a lot of teams also get frustrated with the practice they're doing. And we've done it as well. We get frustrated with teams pushing against us because we're trying to practice and execute. And you know what? That's on our fault because, in a competition, if they do that, we can't get frustrated with it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, so ideally it's just pushing towards teams just understanding the fact that from my understanding is that you're pushing the teams not to win these practice scrims because I do know that a lot of the teams actually go, "Oh, we do well in scrims against these teams, so we should be put in these high
Well,
divisions." So
yeah, exactly right. Like a lot of teams use practice as results, which is really wrong, especially in the lower tier. The top tier don't really do it. But it's also like there's so many mind games as well that teams can play with it. Like for example, we can get smacked in a practice, but then it comes to a competition. Like competition is a whole different ball game, and
yeah,
then lands a whole another one after that. Like pressure amounts, people don't feel confident doing plays and stuff like that. So like as long as you're practicing something that you understand what that you're going to practice and when you're going to use it in a competition, practice it. I have no objection to it. But it's when it comes to the point that you don't understand when you're going to use it in a competition, or you don't understand like why you're practicing it, or a team that you're practicing it against, what they're doing and stuff, then that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah, excellent, definitely. So I guess this also goes on to. I think you covered most of the point actually in terms of teams, because I think I remember I used to drill. This is when I filled in temporarily for a CGA team, and I just told them in Cobblestone we're just gonna go on T side. We just go A every single time because I want to practice as A execute. So we've
Well, that's
yeah
exactly right. Like, I'll use an example. When we were boot camping at DreamHack Stockholm, which is an awesome boot camp because we DreamHack set it up for us. So all the teams got to come down in the conference rooms of the hotel and practice all day. But you'd play a team and they'd run the same strategy or the same default 7, 8 rounds in a row. And they might like the first 3, 4 rounds they'll like smash you with it or whatever. But then, like I feel is you shouldn't sort of like you should sort of adapt to it, but you shouldn't also because you're not going to expect that like they're not going to do that 8 rounds in a row in a game, right? So like in terms of if they're pushing an area on their default, you shouldn't have 3 people stacked there because they're going to do it the next round. It's like, well, no, the player who's playing there needs to learn how to play that spot and how to fall back and do that sort of stuff. So there's that as well.
yeah. I guess this is a bit of a two-pronged question. How should Oceanic CS:GO? I say Oceanic now because I think Oz CS:GO is a bit probably a bit too exclusive of our friends in New Zealand. I do know the New Zealand scene is actually starting to develop as well. So
Yeah,
Oceanic
exactly.
CS:GO now. How should they improve in terms of? Well, you mentioned these points where teams are screaming against each other and they shouldn't worry about the results. But what happens when you have these high tier teams actually going against each other and they're worried about revealing strats? Do you think there should be some development of, here's some mid-level teams, this is what we're trying to do, high-level teams teaching mid-level teams, they're just going to practice, high-level teams just practicing a default and vice versa, or...
Look, it's hard to say that because a lot of teams practice mind games. Like for example, if we're going to practice a top tier team, in our practice schedule, we're not going to use, our strategies that like we'll practice some stuff, but there will be stuff that we're hiding or that we're saving for the big LAN or the big online tournament to get us overseas and stuff. So there's always going to be that. I do feel that a lot of teams need to practice a wide variety of teams. Like I know, like it's kind of hard for us in terms of the main top. I'd say top 3 teams that we practice is probably Chiefs, Exile 5. At the moment, we aren't practicing Legacy too much because they're practicing really early in the night because of I think it's because of Azad. Top Gun has work, so we're not really practicing them much as I'd like. And we're practicing really late at night because Moe gets home from work late. So and Vox, we're also practicing a lot. So like we're practicing, we're like trying to just practice, get the best practice we can because we're going overseas soon. But then again, it's only giving us what a 3, 4 team wide range of different sort of practice.
Yeah.
Whereas like if we practice the low tier Div 1 or even Div 2 teams or say CGI sorry now, it gives us a wider range. Like we might smash them in practice or whatever, but we're still learning from that. Like every team we play, especially with the new lineup, we're learning as we go. We're learning, what works, what doesn't work, what's going to work against some teams, what's not going to work against some teams.
Yeah.
So I think like as you said, like improving organic CS in the team development. I think teams need to sit down and, as I said before, talk about game plans, what they're going to be like, what their game. Like I think a lot of teams don't understand that you should have a game plan. Like tactics and strategies are 2 different things as well.
Yeah.
Like a tactic is like, the whole game, the end game, what you want the last result to be. Whereas your strategies is like, an execute or a default or something. So I think if teams understand that and they learn to talk about, what they want to achieve in the practice, then teams are going to get smarter at practicing. Teams are going to get better, like a lot better. And if they put the time and dedication in, then like there's no reason why all these teams can't be like real contenders for CGP.
Okay.
So
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I guess touching so those are actually really good answers. So I do hope some teams actually get the opportunity to actually improve. So I do think I do think Oceanic CS:GO probably needs some of the ego taken out of it. I'm probably not the best person to be talking about it. I'm not sure about how you view it as well. I feel like ego is a big thing that needs to be removed from a lot of teams.
Ego's good in a way though.
Yeah.
I look. Don't get me wrong. Like I hate the egotistic people, and I'm sure people think that I'm egotistic and all that sort of stuff. Everyone thinks that everyone is. That's not the problem. What the problem is when ego gets too much in terms of players, and they try and um, what's the word? Like ego takes over things.
They
Ego,
become arrogant as opposed
yeah,
to just confidence.
yeah, exactly. Like like you mentioned Pete before, PDG. Like me and him have had some beef recently, and whatever. He can think what he wants, but I've always respected him as a player, and the way that he acts at LAN, so confident, and people's like, oh, he's just got a massive ego. That's good. Like having confidence is good, but when that confidence turns into cockiness, which it never did with Pete, like he was very confident, but it never turned into cockiness. That's when it becomes a problem, and when teams start getting that on that high horse, and then they, might get smashed and they go into a real slump and stuff like things like that can just have a snowball effect where just teams end up dying because of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, ego's a good thing, but just to a small amount.
So it's about really just the balance.
Pretty much, yeah. Having a good balance of everything is going to be the ideal situation.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely. So, all right. I guess now that's so we've touched on pretty much the new IM lineup. Now we've touched also on local scene. Now internationally. So you guys are heading towards I think in Sweden, isn't it? The Malmo qualifiers.
We're going to Singapore, so it's
Singapore
the
actually
Asian
first.
DreamHack Malmo qualifier. So
Okay.
we're going
Yep.
to qualify in Asia and then go. Well, and then we got Canopy straight after the Asia. So
Okay. Yeah. So
Singapore mission.
you're going to Singapore and then heading to Europe.
Yeah, so we leave here on the end of the week, and we go to Singapore for a few days. We're going to play the DreamHack Malmo qualifiers,
Yep.
and then I think it's the top, yeah, first place only goes to Malmo in Sweden, which is mid-April. So we'll
Okay.
go
Yeah.
from Singapore we'll go play Canopy in Croatia,
Okay. Yep.
and then I think we're going to come home for a little bit, and then hopefully when we qualify, or if we do qualify, we'll head off again in a few weeks after that. So
Okay. Well, it sounds like a busy schedule. So.
hopefully.
Yeah. I hope you don't get too jet lagged. So, in terms of Singapore, what teams are you watching out for? Do you actually study much of the VODs of the Asian teams, or not really? I do remember a CG post, I think it was by Danny Grimm, who said that a lot of the Asian teams are actually improving and are insanely strong. So,
Oh yeah, like when we went over for the ESL One Cologne qualifiers back in I think it was May last year. We versed Mongols, Cyberzen, Sky Red, and they probably had a little bit different lineups to what they do now. But we knew like playing them, you can tell that they were strong. So we're definitely going to do some research. It is an online qualifier, which isn't the greatest thing. So we have got a net cafe that we're going to, which is apparently pretty good. And we'll check that out the day before and make sure the ping's okay and all that sort of stuff. And I've got a few mates who live over there from other teams who are going to help us out. But in terms of watching VODs and stuff, like we did stay up and watch Mongols at IM Katowice. They didn't do as well as I wanted them to do. I really thought they showed good results at Taipei. But that's not we can't just solely base our practice or what we want our game plan on them. It needs to be on us. It needs to be what we're gonna. They didn't watch out for us, not we watch out for them. If that makes sense.
okay, yeah.
So yeah, so like we'll definitely put our all in and see what happens.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So, how do you think Legacy are doing? So, I know you haven't had the chance to scrim, and hopefully, I wish there were two spots, but how do you think Legacy will actually do against the opposing lineups?
Um, I
Bit of a
really
loaded
don't know.
question, but
Yeah, I really, I'm unsure about Legacy. They've got some tremendous talent in that lineup. In Ofnu, and everyone gives Luke, as in Havoc, a bit of smack for his slump in Renegades. But I played that guy when he was in Vox Eminor, when we had Yam and everything, and that guy's an absolute machine when he wants to be. Like he is one of the Australia's, like he's a legend in the Australian Counter Strike scene. So, you know, players like him, Ofnu, as I said before, Top Gun. His Top Gun's mechanical game is just insane. Like he may not have the brains or whatever, but no one can mechanically match Top Gun. Like he's just insane. So they've got some amazing talent in that team. it'll be good to see how they go. Like I said, we haven't practiced them, so I actually have nothing. I haven't even watched their CGP games to see what they're like, so I have actually no information on them. But I hope they do well, and I seriously we meet them in the final.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I guess this going more into the traveling experience. So, I mean, there are three teams so far. Well, technically two now since the old Legacy did disband, but they have traveled overseas and played. So, in terms of you guys, I think you guys have traveled overseas two or three times now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think we've been to like 8 or 9 events
Eight.
overseas.
Okay.
I think like our first time we went to like 3 events. So we've been in Europe for like X amount of time and
Okay.
gone
Yeah.
to multiple events. So I'm not sure how many times we've actually gone to Europe, but I think we've been to like 8 international trips or 7 international trips, something like that.
Okay, so a lot more. So I guess in terms of that, was there anything really eye-opening, firstly in real life for you guys actually traveling, and then in CS:GO?
There actually was. We in Australia we don't really have big lands that often.
Yeah.
Like CGP is probably only run what twice, maybe 3 times a year. Um, so and we've got ACL a few times, but like that's nothing compared to what these top teams go to. They go to like I think this weekend is the only weekend without a land this year. Like every other weekend in
Jeez.
the international tournament, in the international scene, has got a land. So you know, going like for me, the biggest eye opener was going overseas with my team for the first time. We spent, I think it was 5 or 6 weeks in Europe, and they're not just your teammates are not just teammates in that sense. You're actually living with them, so it does get difficult at times. It's a very difficult experience for some. But the teams that like, I don't really want to point. I don't know what happened with the old legacy lineup where they quit. But teams that do come back from those big tournaments and stay together really have a good determination factor and a good like sense of what it takes to become a great team. So that's one thing, and plus, you get to see all these beautiful countries. So I can't really complain in that department as well. But going over into CS, what is different like in Europe, what is different overseas? Um, it's hard because once again, for them, this is their job, right? So they're practicing a ridiculous amount. They're playing all day, every day. Whereas us, like Moe has work, well, Moe CQ in our team has work. I'm at uni. Ryan's at uni. Rick works a few nights. Chris works a few days a week. So, like we all have other things outside CS.
Yeah.
Which isn't an excuse. Don't get me wrong. Like it's not an excuse. Like we're still here determined to do what we can when we can, and like we're trying to win. So, but for these in overseas, the CS is just like they're groundbreaking they're groundbreaking for the meta, if that makes sense. Like any team over there can just create the meta like that, and at the moment it's Fnatic, but and we will never be able to create the meta if that makes sense. Like what I feel, we're always going to be playing catch up every time we go over. Like when we went over, it seriously takes us probably I'd say 3 days just to learn to practice properly, if that makes sense. Otherwise, teams just steamroll you. If you don't learn to practice properly over there, it's just a waste. Like you may as well not go to the boot camp. You may as well just
Yeah.
turn up to the tournament and try to surprise someone. So it's very different. I'll say that.
Yeah. I guess going on to the point where you said the practice factors and you say it's not an excuse, I do believe Australia is a bit so to speak, underdeveloped in that aspect, but I don't think it's the actual team's fault because, I mean, it's just if we compare, say, for example, the Korean practice regime, where they literally practice for nearly 12 hours a day inside gaming houses, they're paid to do so. I'm assuming it's the same for the European tier one, almost even tier two teams, where they're at least paid a salary or they can rely on streaming income.
Well, pretty much. Like Thorin made a tweet a few weeks ago that the Australian scene is pretty much the North American scene before the North American scene got the money, like the egos, the arrogance, and all that, which is true to an aspect. But even I think one of the biggest eye openers for us when we went overseas was our second event, DreamHack Tour qualifiers BOC, and you had teams like Begenius or Somniac LDLC White, LDLC Blue. These tier two French teams who are not bad. Like they would probably destroy most Australian. I'd say probably almost all Australian teams. Who like LDLC had two coaches behind them. They have like they're like they take the game so more seriously than even our tier one teams do here in Australia. So they're obviously going to be better. They're as you said, their practice regime in Asia and here and what compared to here, sorry, is just so different. Like we just don't take it anywhere near as seriously as what any other team, what any other countries in the world do. Like even Brazil now has just become amazing. So
Yeah. Well, I think hopefully there will be changes in the future. I mean, I was thinking about pretty much future employment. I'm not sure about you as well because I think you're a year younger than me, aren't you?
I'm 21.
Yeah, you're a year younger than me. I think you're
Yeah,
born. I was born in '93. That's why.
yeah, I'm 94.
So, in terms of like, because I was thinking like in this kind of way, in terms of employment, it's only going to become more difficult for young people like us. Entertainment, especially in terms of the esports, is becoming a big thing. So that's why I was theorizing that money is going to come to Australia soon. Hopefully, in terms of
Well, we hope
yeah,
so. Like you got to understand, like what people don't realize is actually North America has a bigger budget from global sponsors than what Europe does. But Europe's best teams, well, the best teams are in Europe. So we just need someone to inject money constantly and sponsors to give money in the oceanic scene. That's the biggest problem because we don't have the we don't really have the population. That's the biggest problem. Our population isn't buying the gaming gear, isn't supporting the esports as much as what Europe and North America are. So if we get those people, like our biggest population, supporting esports and buying stuff where sponsors can see a real potential and real profit from this region, then we will get it. But until then, we're not going to get it, unfortunately, I think.
yeah. So I guess it is up to us as well. I mean, that's why I'm trying to ditch the terrible headset I have at this stage and probably try to get one of the more like better branded ones. Not only just for the
Mate,
audio
still
quality.
serious is where it's at.
Yeah, but there we are. But that's the whole kind of thing because otherwise sponsors actually don't. They go, oh, this is a market, but no one's coming to us. Whereas if we actually come out and buy that, I think that's why BenQ actually sponsors a lot of the CG stuff because, I mean, I do remember that BenQ is used, but a lot of people say good things about BenQ. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people are like the first 144 hertz monitor you'll think of is probably the BenQ monitor. So it's either got to
To me, still the best 140, 120 hertz monitors are BenQ. So
yeah. So I mean, I think even internationally, I think BenQ is regarded like that. So yeah, I guess in
well,
terms of
even DreamHack now, DreamHack stopped working with ISO because the players didn't want to work, or didn't want ISO as a monitor sponsorship. So they got DreamHack.zowie or whatever it is now. So they got
yeah,
DreamHack got BenQ monitors. So yeah,
yeah. So I guess hopefully
the
people
marketing's
start buying
there.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the marketing's there. It's just that we got to get the funding in this region. That's all.
yeah, definitely. All right, so I guess this is probably the final question. Aspirations and goals of not of only yourself, but as well as I am, I guess, and the time frame that you want to achieve these. We can go
Um,
deep. We can go deep, or we can go shallow. Depends on you.
just quickly on myself, I guess. Goals are obviously making the team as good as I can make it, making it the best team that we can be. That's a given. Winning as much stuff as we can, or getting as far as we can in international tournaments. I think now us as a team we're expecting ourselves to make it overseas. Like Australia lands aren't good enough for us anymore. Like, that's awesome to win an Australian land. Like, don't get me wrong, and we should be. But I think overseas is now like expected for us. But talking as a team perspective, you know, moving overseas, hopefully soon, will definitely be a goal of ours. Maybe whether it be by the end of the year or next year or something in the next few years where, it's still viable for us. That's definitely a goal. Whether it be North America or Europe, I don't know. Um, you know, what else? Winning everything that's winning everything that we go to or trying to is definitely and putting in 110%. Like, I did say winning, but winning's not the be all and end all of everything as long as we're giving it our all.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, there's not too much else to it, I guess, apart from, supporting, like having all the support from our fans, like creating a fan base bigger than ever, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's not too much to it.
I guess that's all. So probably last question is any shout outs to any sponsors and anyone else?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Team Unity and all our sponsors: Intel, SteelSeries, Gigabyte, Fractal Designs, BenQ, Gale, AK Racing. Without them, we couldn't be going overseas. And thank you guys for supporting us for the last whatever it's been, 2 years, I think it has, or something ridiculous. You know, Once again, thank you to all our fans. You guys are awesome. All the love messages we've been, on Twitter, all the support and everything else, keep it coming. It's really awesome. Everyone loves it. And thank you to yourself, man, for having me.
No, no, thank you for having me as well. I mean, it's probably difficult to get the interview in, especially considering your university as well as, I mean,
Yeah,
practice. So,
it's been it's been rough the last few weeks. It's been very busy, but we do what we love.
all right, no worries. All right, so that's pretty much it for the interview. Once again, thank you if you have watched it all the way to the end. Please do support Team Immunity in their upcoming endeavors, and yeah, that's all.